Coffee with Vixen. Today we actually have a lot of interesting articles for you guys. Um, Starting with doctors claim that bee sting venom could actually prevent the spread of HIV. After doing some study at the Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, they actually found that there's a specific chemical that is actually found in bee stings, or in bee venom more specifically, that could possibly be moved over and developed as a vaginal gel that could actually help prevent the spread of HIV. Basically what happens is that this particular chemical, known as melatonin, fuses with the HIV cell and literally destroys it. We may be on another breakthrough, and this very well could be the next step for actually creating a cure for HIV and AIDS, which would be an absolute marvel of science. The next thing on my list is a new study has popped up, and pot smoking apparently not linked to breathing problems. Actually may help the lungs. According to this 20-year study, the study actually found that there was no decline in lung function for occasional cannabis smokers, and actually overall lung function of most marijuana smokers improves over time. The report was published last year in the Journal of the American Medical Association, and actually shows that over a 20-year period, marijuana smokers generally did not experience a loss in lung function. In fact, many actually had enhanced lung capacity, which one researcher speculated might actually come from the practice of what's called deep lunging, which are your deep hits, which maximize the intoxicating effects of smoking marijuana. Whatever the cause, the fact remains that the study actually showed that lung function of most marijuana smokers actually improved slightly over time. The way that this is described is that your average adult healthy man can actually exhale the equivalent of a gallon of air in about 1 second. But cannabis smokers on average were actually able to blow out that gallon of air plus about 50 milliliters worth of air. So they're not only doing the regular gallon, but they're doing the gallon and then some. This is definitely another step in the right direction and for science. I mean, this is awesome. The study actually didn't have a lot of light to shed on heavy smokers, though. Those who did smoke the equivalent of a joint a day for about 40 years or smoked more than 25 times a month, because of the number of such users in the study was very small. The scientists weren't sure if it was a possible trend indicating slight lung irritation from heavy smoking was valid or not. Apparently, this is something that some people are starting to bring up. On a plus, though, if I could keep the frog out of my throat, there is, however, another study, the largest of its kind ever to be conducted, in fact, and this was done by Donald Tashkin of the University of California at Los Angeles, or UCLA, which actually shows that marijuana smoking, even heavy long-term smoking, does not actually lead to lung cancer. There's actually for those of you who don't know, they actually they found out that there is an anti-cancer agent that occurs naturally in cannabis. So it's not the cannabis itself that actually causes lung cancer. A lot of people, if you guys know anything about Bob Marley is said to have supposedly died from pot, and it actually he didn't. There's a lot of speculation around his death, but for the most part, I think the general consensus is that he actually died from ink poisoning from rolling joints with newspaper. At that time, the newspaper ink was toxic, built up in his system, and that killed him. Anyway, some more good news. Tea Party darling Michelle Bachmann is actually threatening to flee Minnesota, supposedly. Obviously, this is satire, but it's still kind of funny, and it's just funny. It really is. One can actually hope, anyway, that she carries her pray the gay away nonsense with her right on out of the state. Um, I have to laugh at this though because so many people have taken this like seriously, when in actuality this is satire. Um, the whole thing was supposedly that Michelle Bachmann was threatening to flee the state to escape God's wrath, um, and basically it was because Minnesota actually just became the 12th state to legalize and recognize gay marriage. So it's kind of funny with a serious tone. Definitely worth a read, though. Some kind of crappy news. Ancient Mayan pyramid got destroyed by construction company in Belize, and this happened to be one of their the country's one of the country's biggest pyramids. It borders with Mexico. Um, the ceremonial center the ceremonial center is at what is known as the Nomal complex, and is actually estimated to be at least about 2,300 years old, and was actually considered to be the most important historical site in northern Belize, on the border with Mexico. What actually happened here is that they had some suspicion that there was some construction going on, because they started noticing large chunks of the rock on the ground and things like that. Um, but now it's in full swing, and basically, yeah, the construction company was supposedly digging for crushed rock for a road that they're building, and they picked up that there was some chipping away from the pyramid sides, until barely anything was left. And at this point, they're using bulldozers and backhoes to actually carry out the work, and it's terrible because this is a landmark site. I mean, this is archaeologically speaking. I mean, this thing could hold all kinds of information that we haven't even really recognized yet. Um, and it's just, it's terrible. Um, a really weird occurrence happened in Minnesota. The Associated Press actually posted a YouTube video of this, and it's actually a wave of ice that came ashore in Minnesota, and it's actually quite interesting, to be honest. You guys should really watch this because you can actually, as the wave pushes onto the shore, you can actually watch the ice crystals form and then fall off in front of the wave. Very interesting to watch. Some interesting news from naturalhomes.org. In 2011, the dacha gardens of Russia actually produced 40% of the nation's food. I'm constantly saying that we really need, here in the U.S. anyway, we really need to rethink the way that we produce our food and the way that we farm our animals, especially on a mass scale. Um, I think Russia may actually have something going for them with these dacha gardens. In 2011, 51% of Russia's food was actually grown either by dacha communities, 40, which was approximately about 40%, um, or peasant farmers, which was around 11%, leaving the rest of 49% of production to the large agricultural enterprises. What gets really interesting, though, is that in 2011, the Dacha Gardens actually produced over 80% of the country's fruit and berries, over 66% of the vegetables, and almost 80% of the potatoes, and nearly 50% of the nation's milk, much of which was actually consumed raw. A lot of that's because they don't use a lot of pesticides. They don't use a lot of steroids. They don't use GMO foods. I mean, there's all kinds of things these people are doing that's completely different. The other thing, though, is that actually during the communist period, which I really don't like using that because that wasn't communism. It was something completely different. That's a discussion for another time. During the communist period, school children were actually obliged to visit their local farms to actually get the hands-on experience with harvesting food. At a time when about 90% of the nation's food came from the dacha gardens, during the same period, every child would actually be expected to play their part in growing the family's food and from their own little small patch in Russia. What's funny though is that there was a UK counselor who decided to give his opinion regarding the whole living off the land thing, and he said nobody would subject themselves to that way of life. You might as well be in prison. Actually, living off the land and spending your time closer to nature not only puts you back into it puts your mindset and your spiritual self back into sync with nature, but it actually it can be very healing and very beneficial to you. Even if it's something as small as taking your lawn and turning it into a vegetable garden, and you let some of the people from the neighborhood come around and pick some of your vegetables and stuff. I mean, it can be that simple. You can actually see some of the different work from Grow Food Not Lawns. They've done a lot of good work in that area in helping people learn about how to plant, how to sow this, sow the seeds, till the soil, the whole 9 yards. I mean, there are some people that will actually come out and help you learn how to do this stuff. You can also find classes usually around your state where you can learn these kinds of things. This this article though kind of threw me for a loop. Ipswich teen loses both hands after thrown a homemade bomb, which apparently was a golf ball. He ended up losing both of his hands. He's 15 years old, and I'm not quite sure what exactly would possess anybody, first of all, to make a homemade golf ball bomb, let alone throw it at somebody. A 15-year-old boy. I don't know if this was seriously like just a miscalculation or whatever, but you know what? At this point, I think we really need to watch our kids. For those of you who are wondering, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe this took place in Australia, because it comes from the Courier Mail. So, okay, moving along. Um, from the Weed blog, tell Congress that it's time to end the funding for the war on cannabis patients. Um, as many of you know, if you've been watching any kind of actual news, medical marijuana use has actually been going up in the United States, as well as spreading state to state. Um, More specifically, though, this article is talking about where the DOJ, or the U.S. Department of Justice, was actually targeting the San Francisco Bay Area for the medical marijuana patients. Um, since then, though, the ASA, or Americans for Safe Access, have been trying to start up their own campaign, which is Peace for Patients campaign, which is actually aimed at the ending of the war on medical cannabis patients. There's 18 states plus the District of Columbia that have actually passed laws allowing patients to actually access medical cannabis under the recommendation of their doctor. Yet, despite the fact that they're legally using medical cannabis, the government, the DEA, and the DOJ keep going in and just like knocking down dispensaries left and right. There actually have been several arrests for medical marijuana use, and I mean, it's just, if it's not one thing, it's something else. If you want to watch the latest news concerning medical marijuana, I would definitely recommend the Weed Blog. Okay, definitely give them a check out. From antiwar.com, we also have Pakistan's Sharif was trying to seek an end to the U.S. drone war. Unfortunately, Sharif is not one of the people that I guess the U.S. really wants to talk to at this point. But Sharif has actually vowed not to tolerate continued U.S. drone strikes on Pakistan. Which is good, because I mean, let's face it, these drone strikes, they can say, oh, well, we're trying to kill a terrorist. Yeah, but you're also killing more civilians and children, more specifically, than you are at actually getting legitimate information to actually target the right areas. Just because we have drones doesn't necessarily mean we should use them in that particular instance. Anyway, on a less related note, the Arkansas spill that happened a little while ago in Mayflower, Arkansas, has popped back up in the news again. And the Arkansas oil spill apparently has some health issues coming with it, which we all kind of figured. And apparently there's also a lingering putrid stench, which is worrying a lot of the Mayflower moms. Quite honestly, I can't blame these women for being worried, because despite the fact of the results of independent health surveys and air sampling conducted in the weeks following the spill may have raised some reason for concern, the environmental health consultant who has worked extensively in the wake of the BP Gulf oil spills, the levels of carcinogenic benzene and 4 other volatile organic compounds were actually exceeding safety standards used in Texas and in Louisiana. And that was from March 30th when they did those. Levels are now being told to these people that, oh, well, they're safe. Yeah, but they're not safe for pregnant women. They're not safe for the elderly, and they're not safe for young kids, because these three groups in particular are highly sensitive to those chemicals in smaller concentrations. And ExxonMobil, they're doing the bare minimum of what is legally required of them. And quite honestly, I don't really expect them to do much more than that. We're talking about a really big oil company who thinks that it can get away with anything it wants. All it has to do is throw some money at it. So, and I'm sorry if I kind of sound a little congested and whatnot, and I can't keep my throat clear. My allergies are actually bothering me a little bit. Anyway, they're saying basically that even if a child is not repeatedly breathing, touching, or ingesting the chemicals, a real possibility due to the difficulty of cleaning up this heavy crude, which actually came from the tar sands region. Yeah, you want to kind of like rethink that XL pipeline. Anyway, early exposures may still be enough to result in reproductive problems and other long-term health issues, but they're trying to still push for some people to actually get out there and start studying some of these different health effects. This isn't the first time health effects have actually been brought up in the news. There's been several different cases that have arisen since the Mayflower oil spill. And this isn't the first time a pipeline has actually burst on land. There was a burst in Missouri, and then there was also a burst that happened, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Michigan. Um, yeah, Marshall, Michigan. There was a burst there, and we keep seeing these pipelines burst, and yet our government wants to sit there and push this XL pipeline that's going to carry this really thick and disgusting oil through the dead center of the country, right past several different water sources that actually, offer water, drinking water, to over 100,000 people in each region. Um, and it makes you wonder, because these people that are engineers are actually saying that this pipeline is not going to hold up. Um, the XL pipeline has apparently some cup links that hold the pipe together that are faulty. There's some switches apparently that are faulty, and these things are being overlooked because all of our glorious government can see is, oh, money, 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 money. Um, you know, you would think that the government, and I mean, just kind of going away from news for a minute, you would actually logically think that the government should be more concerned about its citizens, not about money. Unfortunately, that's not the US government. Um, the United States was originally founded as a democratic constitutional republic. Okay? We're not a democracy solely. We are actually a democratic constitutional republic. Um, which is why there's an electoral college. It's why that your vote really doesn't actually count. And really, if you think about it, our government doesn't care about us. What I'd like to see, though, and I know this will never happen, but what I would really like to see is our congressmen, whether they'd be part of the Senate or the House, actually walk around in suits the same way that NASCAR drivers do, with their sponsors' logos all over their shirts and all over their pants. Because it would be such an eye opener to so many people that it's mind blowing. Um, you can't bribe anybody because that's illegal. But if you go to Congress, you can do what's called lobbying, which is where your company sends a representative to a specific congressman, offers them so much money, and then in turn, they try to push bills through, and not necessarily good ones. So, next time you're sitting there watching whatever TV station you like to watch, think about that. I mean, really think about it. Don't just let it sit there and go, oh, okay, well, it's rattling around the brain, screw it, it's going out the other ear. Yeah, I mean, really think about this, because this concerns you if you're in the United States and you're watching my videos. Um, our government is extremely corrupt. We have our good politicians that are out there, don't get me wrong, but for the large majority, our government overall is corrupt. And our government does not fear its people. It doesn't. It does tests on us. Okay? Look at GMOs. We are literally walking guinea pigs. Anyway, look into Monsanto, look into how actually corrupt our government is. There's plenty of information out there on that. Um, and definitely check out all the links in the description that I'm posting for all the awesome articles that we discussed today. If you have opinions, concerns, interesting, weird articles, by all means, please send them to me. And on that actual note, I have one final news article for you guys. It's weird, it's creepy, it's gross, and nobody has any idea what the hell it is. This was actually submitted from one of my longtime viewers, and it's called it's actually called Monster Barf. Weird smelly foam oozes through cracks in Chinese streets. Um, this actually took place in the Chinese city of Nanjing on Saturday night. Okay, really freaking weird. Um, there have been apparently some minor cracks and stuff in the road, and apparently there's also been some people working on the sewer. However, the actual incident ended up creating kind of a disturbance. Although, when you have a 50-meter radius and a foot-high foam spooge in the middle of your street, I'm sure, that would end up, kind of triggering some, something like red flags, something. Anyway, this thing apparently was very foamy. It stunk to high heaven. Um, so what the Chinese firefighters did, and the police rushed out, roped off the scene. Firefighters busted out the hoses. Um, they were redirecting the flow of traffic from the flow of the ooze, trying to keep pedestrians back, and basically spraying this foam back into the sewers. Um, The only problem is, though, is that the only real rational explanation that officials could actually come up with, that this Godzilla barf, if you will, might actually be related to a nearby subway construction. Though even that theory hasn't answered a lot of questions and even raises more questions. Some people are actually thinking that there may be a little bit too much detergent, or there's something going on here. Um, but thanks to my long-term follower, if I could get it out, for that very interesting article. That was a little crazy, even for me. Okay. Anyway, guys, please enjoy your day, and peace be with you.